Hey Siri, call Kyla Bennett.
Calling Kyla Bennett. Work.
Adele, just so you know, you're not muted.
Hi, you have reached Kyla.
Hmm.
I'm supposed to press *6 to unmute.
Oh, wow. I'm just waiting for the rest of my committee to arrive. There's Anthony. Hi, Anthony. There's Susan. Alexander Black, are you here? I'm going to make my committee members co-hosts. So you guys
Yes,
can,
I'm here. I am here.
what number?
Alexander Black is here.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I'm here.
What number are you?
Alexander Black,
It
323
just says iPhone.
Right.
iPhone. Sorry. I'm iPhone. Sorry.
Got it. I'm making you a co-host.
Thank you.
I'm just making everyone who is a committee member a co-host right now. Melanie, there you are. Jesse, are you here? There's Chip. Hi, Chip.
Hello, everybody.
I'm making all the committee members co-hosts. And just getting everyone here.
You want us to help you let people in or?
No, people can come in, but just in case anybody needs to be, muted or something. Also, waiting on Jesse because he's our secretary.
It looks like he's here.
You're not muted.
I'm seeing, do you see him?
I see his screen, no video, and he's muted. He's not now muted.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Sorry. Co-host, there you go. So I think I don't know, I haven't heard from Lily, and I know she's got problems in her family, so she may not be here. Will you keep an eye out for her there, Chip?
I shall.
Jesse, are you able to take the notes?
Sure.
Okay, and can you take the roll?
Sure. Give me 1 second.
You want me to do it? I can do it. I have it right here.
Okay, that'd be great. I'll start writing.
Okay. Adele Slaughter, present. Lily Barasha is, I think she might be absent. Alexander Black,
Yes, I'm here.
present.
I'm-
Chris Trent,
You're not.
I'm here.
Susan Schabel,
I'm here.
Jesse Sanford,
Here.
Whitney Han,
Here?
Melanie Winter.
Here.
Diana Nicole. I know she's coming, so, and Randy is not really, I mean. Okay, so Diana Nicole, so let's just begin with the, I don't see our guest, Alex. Can you get in touch with her? Or is she here?
She's here, public employees for environmental responsibility. That's her down there.
Got it, got
Under
it.
P.
Got it. I'm gonna make her a co-host too.
I'm right
Thank you.
here, Adele.
Okay, great, thanks. Thanks, I didn't recognize your name. So first order of business, can we approve the minutes from last meeting, which you got in the email?
To approve?
Approve? Any- Yes, 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 okay. The minutes passed. And we are going to have a special guest from the East Coast to talk to us about what she is. She's an expert in synthetic artificial turf, and she is from the East Coast, so she can only be here, for the first 15 minutes or so, and then we have to let her go to bed because she gets up at 5 a.m. If you can imagine, it's 10 there. Anyway, we are very concerned about the environment, as the Sustainability Committee should be, and we want to make informed decisions about everything. And I don't know if some of you have seen the recent article in the, what's it called, Wirecutter of the New York Times, and where they say they do not recommend synthetic grass for your lawn, because although it saves water, it has a host of other problems. And they don't even get into the host of other problems that Kyla Bennett is going to talk to us about tonight. So I would like you all to welcome her, and let's give her our full attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Adele. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. As Adele said, my name is Kyla Bennett. I'm the Director of Science Policy at the nonprofit Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility. We're a national environmental whistleblower organization. And I was the one who discovered that there are PFAS in artificial turf back in 2019. And if you haven't heard that acronym PFAS, it stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. It's a very, very large class of human-made chemicals, and we call them forever chemicals because they simply do not break down in the environment naturally. And unfortunately, PFAS, which were developed in the 1930s to 40s, they're linked to, we now know, increased cholesterol decreased responses to vaccines, adverse changes to the liver, increased risk of kidney and testicular cancer, high blood pressure, obesity, preeclampsia, developmental issues in children, and higher risk of severe COVID. A host of other issues. Some of them are now known carcinogens. The state of California currently only regulates 3 of these thousands of compounds. What they have right now is a level of these 3. For PFOA, which is one of the most common and well-known PFAS, California has an action level of 10 parts per trillion. Very, very tiny amounts, because these things are very dangerous in tiny amounts. Then they have 40 parts per trillion for PFOS, the second most common PFAS, and then 5 parts per billion for a third one that you don't need to know about. But what's worth noting is that California recently proposed establishing a public health goal limit for PFOA of 7 parts per quadrillion. So they're low. That basically means there is no safe level of this chemical. They also want to go to 1 part per trillion for PFOS. And the reason they're doing it is because in November of 2021, EPA redid some risk assessments on PFOA, PFOS, and one other PFAS. And they too found that there's virtually no safe level of these compounds. They are carcinogens, they're deadly, and in very, very minute amounts. So like lead, there's no safe level. And we have them in our water. You have them in your water. I have them in the East Coast of my water. They're all over the country, all over the world. They're ubiquitous, and we have to turn off the tap. So why am I telling you about all this PFAS stuff? It's because it's in the artificial turf. And the project that's proposed that you guys are looking at is something that you should look at very, very carefully, because the industry and the consultants who are pushing these artificial turf fields do not want you to know that they really have PFAS in there. When we first found it, they said, it's not there, we don't have it, not there. We proved it to them by giving them lab results, and they said, okay, well, maybe there's PFAS in, but it's not the bad stuff. Okay, there is no good stuff and bad stuff. All PFAS, as far as we can tell, are bad. The bond that makes up the backbone of every PFAS molecule is almost impossible to destroy. So once you create PFAS, you can't get rid of it. So we have found, not just Pierre, but other scientists around the country, especially those at Notre Dame University, have tested dozens of artificial turf projects. We've tested the grass blades, the backing, and the shock pad, and even the infill, that stuff that you use to keep it down. People used to use crumb rubber. Now industry tells you, we're going to give you the organic infill, which is good for the environment. Organic doesn't mean like going to the grocery store and getting an organic apple. They just mean it's derived from something natural rather than a plastic or rubber. It doesn't mean it's safe. And in fact, we found PFAS in their organic rock fill, which is made out of engineered wood. So we are finding PFAS in every aspect of these artificial turf fields. And so now industry is finally admitting that they're using PFAS because they had no choice. We kept finding it in every test we did. They finally admitted, okay, we're using this. We're also just recently realized, what we suspected, that the PFAS is leaching off the fields and getting into groundwater and drinking water, which is very, very dangerous, not only for people in the community, but also for financial liability reasons. But once you contaminate one of these water supplies, it's done. You really can't get rid of this stuff. You can't incinerate it. It floats into the air and gets deposited. If you put it through a wastewater treatment plant, even more are created. It's almost like a zombie compound. You just cannot get rid of it. So industry is telling us that the type of PFAS they're using is safe. It's not. That's an industry talking point. We have safety data sheets that say this isn't true. We have articles in peer-reviewed journals that say this isn't true. Happy to provide you with any of that if and when you get to that point. They'll also tell you that artificial turf results in less injuries. This is not true. If you weed out all the studies that are being done and paid for by the artificial turf industry and look at independent academic studies, what you'll find is the injury rate is actually much higher on artificial turf than it is on natural grass. And in fact, if anyone watched the Super Bowl this year, you remember, I'm not a big football fan, I forgot the guy's name, someone help me here, but the guy who had a non-contact injury, that was because of the artificial turf. The NFL is trying to get away from it because there are so many injuries. The industry will tell you exactly the opposite. They'll say, it doesn't get hot. Don't worry about the heat, especially when we're using this new magic organic infill. It does get hot. It gets to be out here on the East Coast. We're not as hot as you guys. And here the fields get to be 185 degrees Fahrenheit. One of them was measured up to 200 degrees. Kids are having heat stroke. A couple of kids have died across the country. You can read about it in the news. If you go to your favorite search engine, you can put it in and it will come up. So they do get way hotter, way hotter than grass fields. And recent research indicates that artificial turf contributes to climate change. Not only are greenhouse gases released during the manufacturing of the turf, but also as they degrade, they're sending more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. One other thing is that there's a huge microplastic problem. There was a study done in Sweden that said after road traffic, synthetic turf was the second largest quantifiable source of microplastic particle emission, the second largest in the country. So each field, studies show, can shed about 218 kilograms of microplastics every year. So these tiny little pieces of that green fake grass filled with PFAS and other chemicals will get into your water. Scientists are now finding microplastics in our blood, in our lungs. It's not a good idea to be breathing this stuff, drinking this stuff at all. So it should be avoided. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention that industry will not tell you is that there's no recycling for these things. They'll tell you, oh, it'll get recycled. This is the best thing to do environmentally. It's been actually a lie. I'm just going to call it what it is. It's been a lie. There has never been an artificial turf recycling plant in the United States of America. There still is not as we sit here tonight. They tell us it's going to be recycled. We've tried following some of these trains. Most of it ends up in Malaysia. We found a bunch of it in an alley in Pennsylvania. It's dumped everywhere. There is no recycling. So because of all of the industry playbook surrounding this issue, they try to sell a dream. They're saying, your kid's going to be the next Tom Brady if only they're playing on artificial turf. It's not true. Tom Brady grew up playing on grass, of course. So, but whatever, it's not, they try to sell you this dream, you buy it. So some parents are very much in favor of these projects. I urge you to ask. I did not read the entire DEIR that you have. It's a lot of pages, but I don't think they talked about the PFAS that's in the turf. It's a known problem. It's been known for 3 years now. You really need to ask what brand of turf they're using, what brand of shock pad, what kind of infill. Come back and ask me. I'll tell you whether we tested that brand, but trust me, we've tested most of them and they all have PFAS. And you have to wonder, when California finally does pass the 7 part per quadrillion test, what's going to happen to that area? That's over your aquifer, as I understand. It's really something to take into consideration, both the PFAS and the microplastics use. And if you care about more than just your immediate environment, which I know you all do, given that you're in this committee, the rest of the world, where this is being manufactured is endangering workers. Wherever it's being dumped, it's not being recycled, it's endangering people. So it's emitting greenhouse gases, which is affecting all of us. So these are things that I think, questions that you should be asking to the applicant of this project. I hope some of that was helpful to you guys.
Thank you.
Carla, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wait, Kyla, do you want to throw questions out?
I don't think we're gonna have questions at this point. We can have Kyla come back for a Q&A if we decide to do that. And we're sort of past her time limit of what she can do. And I don't want to, I don't want to make her lose sleep. I do want to say, just in terms of the committee, in Los Angeles, there are a lot of artificial turf fields going in all over the city. And I don't think that the city council is aware of this PFAS, the forever chemicals that are attached to the turf. And I think this is a really good education that we need to, educate the entire city, because so many people think that, artificial turf is a panacea. I see it in my neighborhood. People are putting in plastic lawns, and, they just don't know about the depth of the problem that we're causing. And so that's why I wanted, we had a guest today speak, and we'll speak later really about the DEIR from Harvard Westlake. That's later on the agenda. It's not what we're talking about at this moment. We're just talking about this idea about artificial turf and actually how incredibly destructive it is for our environment, and how people really don't know the level of the destruction. Because we got, Tony just was talking to us about how one of his schools put it in, and he had no idea. I don't think you had any idea about all that, right?
Right.
So-
The situation is, I retired as the superintendent of the Oak Park School District, which has a big athletic program. And we put an artificial turf field in 2011 and then just replaced it 10 years later, the year that I left. And we felt that it was important to do. And we were the first green ribbon school district in California. So, and well known around the country as, being a very green school district. And we thought we asked all the right questions. I had not heard of the information that was presented by our speaker tonight. I did a lot of research before. I went to all the sustainability conferences. I talked to the different people. We did a lot of work on this, and in California, we're being encouraged to dump the lawns, because of the drought, and the amount of water and fertilizer and mowing that an athletic field takes is unbelievable. And so obviously we're lulled into wanting to go with something like this, assuming that we think it's, that's something good for the environment. We touted it as a benefit to the environment because we could stop watering it, which, and stop, mowing it and stop fertilizing it, and so because these fields today, there's not that many of them, most school districts and have them, and there's such a huge demand in youth sports and we have to kind of rent it out, when it's under the Civic Center Act, when it's not in use. And so they're basically used 7 days a week, almost 365 days a year until 10 o'clock at night, and so the grass turf, it's difficult. They don't want to, it's hard to maintain one with grass, regular grass. So that's why there's an incentive to go this direction, even though they're super expensive. But I think that this information that was shared today, I think is, needs to come to light more, so that people are aware of it, because I think, that it isn't as good of a solution as it may appear to be. Let's put it that way.
Chip?
Thanks. Thanks very much for that presentation. That was interesting stuff. I think we need to look into this further, and it's not just the issue alone of athletic fields, but it's, Adele, what you brought up earlier. It's kind of ironic that you can actually have removal of sod in your front lawn replaced with apparently toxic artificial turf, and it's subsidized by the city or the state.
Actually, the city is not subsidizing the replacement of lawn into
No, we
synthetic.
removed that from the program about 6 years ago.
So airplanes, sorry. So they won't So they've disallowed artificial turf now?
That is correct.
Awesome. Thank you.
Melanie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'll just, I mean, I myself, like Tony, 25 years ago, did a lot of research on this and looked into it, and it made sense for what we did at Rio de Los Angeles State Park. But as people start to look more closely into materials that are being used, or as materials being used start to shift, and this kind of information comes to light, we have to respond appropriately. PFAS it's just been the last handful of years that it's been, a red screaming light in terms of what it's doing to our water. And this water becomes our drinking water, and our water treatment plants are not designed to treat them. So I just want to underscore that. You probably have all heard we're talking about going to 100% recycled water. Our water treatment plants do not manage for PFAS, and they're not the only contaminant that these plants cannot manage for. I'll also note that PFAS, PFOS are used in fire suppression when you see the bright pink foam. So when you see them using that bright pink red foam to suppress a fire, that gets washed down through streams and into the groundwater basin. So this is a major, major issue, and it is really causing a lot of public health impacts. And whenever we have an opportunity to put the brakes on something that's creating that kind of havoc, we absolutely need to ensure that we do. That's it.
Yep. And okay, so if we have no other comments on that, we will revisit this, of course. And I do think that as a committee, we'll have to figure out how to get this information out to the public. I am going to, Chip, do you want to do that announcement about Earth Day on the 23rd?
I'm still vague about how the actual tactics of this thing work. I mean, essentially, there is a program that Jill Mather has put together with her nonprofit, which will have sort of think Hands Across America. Instead, it goes from Universal City all the way to, I think, Calabasas or Thousand Oaks on Ventura Boulevard. It goes deep into the valley. The idea is that citizens will come out on Earth Day, which is Saturday the 23rd, and pick up trash. Jill Mather and her nonprofit will be around with bags, gloves, t-shirts, sunscreen, water, that sort of stuff. And the idea is for this to be a street festival. But I'm still unclear as to how Jill's group is going to intersect with the various bids. So my assumption from the confusion earlier was that the bids are going to have their own group, although I've spoken to Vicky Nussbaum and I know that she knows Jill, but I don't know if the Studio City bid is going to have their own operation on the 23rd, and Vicky's on vacation through Friday, so I won't know till next week, but I can get back to the committee by email when I find out what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, her information is not very clear, like where the people are going to meet, what day, what they're doing.
And then I forwarded you the email, which I just happened to get from Senator Stern's organization, his newsletter. And it talked about the same project, but it's still missing all that connective tissue.
Yeah.
I just think that everyone that's interested could work their way to Ventura Boulevard on Saturday, the 23rd, and we'll find something to do.
Something to pick up.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Well, no, she's asking people to register and to ensure that there are enough of her volunteers to partner up with people who register and the supplies are distributed appropriately. So I think she has 8 stations. Yeah, there's 8 stations that she has identified. One of them is at the park and ride at Cahuenga and Ventura. another one is the Coffee Bean on Witsit and Ventura. Those are the two in Studio City.
Mm.
Those are the two sort of like,
Where do you go to register?
there is hang on a second, in Henry's email, there's a bit.ly. Let me see if I can find it somewhere else for you too. I'll keep looking. I don't want to hold the meeting up, but let me see if I can find the registration.
If you do, you can put it in the chat.
I will do that. Oh, there's no chat. Wait, we don't have chats.
All right, well, if you do, you can come back and.
Yeah, I will do that.
Okay. Kira, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Adele. I don't have your email, but I just emailed Melanie all the station locations, and I'd be happy to. She sent me every single promotional, what do you want to call it, poster or whatever. So there's a registration for each neighborhood council area, and I can forward you that, but I don't have your email. I'm so sorry. But in terms of partnering with other groups, I don't think Jill's really looking to do that. I think she just went to every single group to try to promote this and to ask them to promote it for her. Because I don't think she's really looking for more than like maybe 20 volunteers for each area. But obviously you can double check with her. And if there's no chat, I guess I still don't have your email, but I'd be happy to send it to you.
Send it to me. I'll send it to everybody. You have,
Okay.
Yeah.
Good solution.
Thanks, Kira. Thank you. Okay, in the interest of getting something done before we talk about Harvard Westlake, I would like to ask the committee's permission, if it's okay with you, to move item number 6 up. Oh, I'm sorry. We have to have public comment within the committee's jurisdiction on items not on the agenda. So if anyone would like to make a public comment on anything that is not on the agenda, I'm happy to hear it now, but you have to raise your hand or give me some kind of a wave. No. Okay. Then is it okay with the committee that we move discussion item 6 up? Yes, Susan? Yeah. Okay, great. So this is discussion of SB 1404, which intends to conserve oak woodlands through use of conservation easements. Possible motion to have Studio City Neighborhood Council support SB 1404, and Diana Nicole is going to present.
Okay, hey everyone. Sorry I'm not on video. I'm having connectivity problems and I'm getting an unstable message every time I try and do video or even add a virtual background. So I don't know about conservation easements, Adele. So under existing law, the conservation of oak woodlands only applies to counties, despite the fact that oak woodlands still exist in the city of LA and other urban areas. So SB 1404 is a bill from Senator Stern that seeks to enhance conservation of oak woodlands everywhere in the state, making all municipalities, all public agencies subject to the law. So what it does is closes the existing loophole that allows our city to destroy our oak woodlands without adequate review, without adequate mitigation. It puts mitigation rules in place. So in other words, it standardizes the conservation of oak woodlands everywhere. And I don't think I need to go into the critical importance of oak woodlands to our state. But Senator Stern is going to be introducing this to committee, I believe, on April 20th. And so I would like this committee to endorse this bill and I'd like us to move towards getting a letter of support from the Studio City Neighborhood Council. We have a lot of oak woodlands in Studio City, especially south of Ventura Boulevard. And so we want to do our best to protect them, and this bill will do that, really not by changing much, just tweaking it so that it applies to our city.
Would you like, could we have discussion? Let's see, should I go to public comment first and then do discussion? How about that? Public comment on what Diana just talked about, supporting SB 1404? Terry Austin?
Yeah, I hope that that you will support this, because we do have, even right here in Studio City, oak stands that are threatened by private developers, and we lose more trees due to private residential homes every year. And so this is a way to put some real teeth and actually cover our local trees, as opposed to just the county laws and ordinances. We only have 5 protected trees in the whole city of Los Angeles. And so anything we can do to protect our tree canopy, I think, is necessary, and I hope you'll support this.
Thanks, Terry. I want for people to understand, since Terry brought up the protected trees, the protected tree ordinance, well, I could talk all day long about how it actually doesn't protect trees, but oak woodlands are not just individual trees. So you're not just destroying the oak trees when you destroy an oak woodland. It is a community of vegetation. So you're removing an area that's affected, and under the current city law, which is much weaker than this one is, SB 1404, we don't mitigate the loss of the oak woodlands at all. And this would change that.
Diana, would you like to put forth a motion that we can then second and then we can discuss? Or do you want us to discuss before?
Well, good question. I mean, I would like to, I don't know that there's a lot to discuss here. I mean, the SB 1404 was kept very simple for the reason of just getting this through. So, I mean, I'm happy if you want to, the motion I was thinking was to vote to support SB 1404 and then move this, I guess, to the board in order to get a written letter of support for SB 1404 from the Studio City Neighborhood Council.
I think, Diana, the problem is we're asking the board then to do the research and to do the work and to write a motion, and that's not how it works. So if you have a simple sentence or two, that would be a motion we could pass and consider and pass along to the boards. They would know what it is we're asking them to adopt and support. That would be super helpful.
So, yes, do you want to write it right now?
Well, what I have in the agenda, I pulled from the motion, the SB 1404 itself. But maybe conservation easements is not the right term, but support SB 104, which intends to conserve oak woodlands, and then what? Throughout.
I can, if someone wants to dictate, I can just put something together really quick.
And Diana, is this the first legislation that talks about an entire habitat and not just an individual species or two?
No, it's existing legislation that talks about oak woodlands. So it's just enhancing that legislation so that it applies to all public agencies. And an oak woodland, it does have a definition of what an oak woodland is. And that definition defines it. Oh gosh, I'd have to pull it up, but it's the current definition under the oak.
It's an oak stand with a greater than 10% canopy cover.
Yep.
That may have historically supported greater than 10% canopy cover, or with savanna-like canopy cover. And savanna-like canopy cover means canopy cover that is less than 10%, but is evenly distributed. And much of
Okay.
the valley is a valley oak savanna. So
Yep, thank you.
Mhm.
I'm glad you had that handy. I was looking for it, so I wouldn't
that's fine.
bungle
And
it.
a stand means a group of groupings of 3 or more trees.
Correct.
So can we say this standardizes and expands, standardizes, expands, and standardizes, strengthens, and expands existing legislation?
Yes,
Existing state legislation, and it makes it apply to Los Angeles.
and all cities. So you could say the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports SB 1404, which enhances the conservation of oak woodlands by ensuring that the removal of oak trees within an oak woodland qualifies as a significant effect on the environment under the California Environmental Quality Act, parentheses CEQA, and identifies mitigation strategies for such significant effects.
Love it.
Brilliant.
I second it.
I would only say impacts instead of effects, but otherwise, yes, support. As long as somebody wrote that down.
Did you write that down or did you just say that, Diana?
I have it written down and I'm changing effects to impacts. I agree with Melanie. I thought about that the other day and then I thought I was being persnickety, so I didn't change it. But now that I have another person, so I can email that to you, Adele.
Great, perfect. Well, do we have any more discussion? Anybody? Should you add about that it's as few as 3 trees or something like that? Is that stupid?
I think if we get into the weeds, we get into
Okay.
trouble.
Okay. Okay, any other, shall we call for a vote? All in favor, let's do a verbal vote of, Jesse, you want to do that?
Sure. Adele,
Yes?
Chip,
Approve?
Melanie,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
and Chris. Aye. This motion passes.
That is the cleanest sausage making we've ever
Oh,
done.
you know what? You forgot to, I'm sorry because you forgot Tony. He's our
I'm
new.
sorry. And
He's our new-
Tony.
Yes.
Mhm.
Great.
Okay, motion passes. Great. So now we're moving on to item 5, which is a discussion of the Harvard Westlake River project, case number ENV 2020-1512 EIR. All the rest I don't think I need to say. Oh, project location 40, 47, 41, 41, and 4155 North Whitsett Avenue. And 12506, 12600, 12630 West Valley Spring Lane, Studio City, California, and parcel number APN 2375 018903. I think we're going to go first to public comment before we go to and it looks like there's a lot of public comment. So what we're gonna do is we need a timer. And we're gonna give just would everyone who wants to speak raise their hand so I can see how many people there are? Yeah.
Adele, I have a question on process here for you.
Yeah.
Are we, now I understand that representatives from the project proponent are here with us, and
Yes.
How are we going to have them be part of the public comment, or is there going to be back and forth? Is there going to be, how are we
Okay.
going
We're
to manage this?
I'm just, I think the best way to manage this is to have, and I have to just depending on how many people are going to speak, I'm going to figure out the timing. so we don't go all night. And looks like we have quite a few. So what we'll do is we're just going to have public comment, and then the committee will have a discussion and figure out where we want to go from here.
Okay, so the project representatives will have the same amount of time as everybody else in the public comment space.
Correct.
Thank
Correct.
you.
Correct. And I'm looking, I think that we can do 2 minutes per. What do you guys think? And I think we need to have a motion to open the discussion. Could somebody make that motion?
I make the
I'll
motion
make
that
the
we
motion.
open the discussion.
I'll second it.
Okay, great. And so what we want to do is have, Chris, can you do the timing? Yes. So if you have your sound, you have to keep your sound on so that they can hear the beeping.
When the time is up?
When the time is up, yeah. Yeah. So you're going to give everyone 2 minutes to speak.
Okay.
So shall we start with Ari?
Hi, Adele, how are you?
Good.
Good, thanks for your time. My name is Ari Engelberg. I'm the head of communications and strategic initiatives at Harvard Westlake. I submitted a letter to Adele for distribution to the committee, but I wanted to read it into the record in case not everybody has seen it. My colleagues will continue with the letter if I don't get a chance to finish. The Harvard Westlake River Park offers a more sustainable future for the site of Weddington Golf and Tennis. The River Park offers the following numerous environmental benefits: a state-of-the-art stormwater capture and reuse system that will be the largest privately financed system of its kind in Los Angeles, allowing the River Park to store up to 1 million gallons of water at a time for reuse on site. A significant reduction in water use by removing the par 3 golf course, which requires 1 million gallons of fresh water per month and does not use reclaimed sources. Less use of herbicides and pesticides, of which the existing golf course requires massive quantities and which leach into the soil and water table. New trees and plantings will be 100% native, virtually eliminating the need to draw potable water from for landscaping. Unlike the vast majority of the current trees, newly planted trees at the River Park will be compliant with the LA River Improvement Overlay and the LA County River Master Plan landscape guidelines and plant palettes. A net increase of 150 plus more trees compared to the existing tree inventory on the site, along with literally tens of thousands of understory plantings. Newly planted trees will offer enhanced shade canopy compared to the current trees, and newly planted trees will increase the biodiversity of the site, offering a wider range of habitat and foraging opportunities for native birds and wildlife. The project will also call for the removal of fan palms, which provide minimal shade, are specifically prohibited from being planted next to the LA River, and are considered an invasive species. The trees on site after the River Park is built will offer equal or greater carbon sequestration capacity compared to the current Weddington property. The River Park will be partially powered by solar panels on the roof of the gymnasium that will provide 339,000 kilowatt hours per year, which is equivalent to the electricity used by 31 Los Angeles homes on average every year. This renewable energy will significantly reduce the amount of electricity pulled from the power grid and the amount of greenhouse gas emissions associated with the River Park.
That's the 2 minutes.
Currently, there is no clean energy produced on the site, and I'll allow my colleagues to continue from there. Thank you.
So shall I ask David Wheel to keep going? David Wheel?
Hi there, thank you. I actually have a couple of other comments to add to the group, but appreciate the time. A colleague after me will continue to read the letter. I do appreciate the earlier topic. I didn't know that was going to be on the agenda. I didn't see it placed there, but I certainly appreciate our East Coast visitor and the mentioning of PFAS. I first became aware of PFAS via a Washington Post article that was circulated in August of 2021. It was at that point that Harvard Westlake reached out to the various potential suppliers of the turf that we intend on using and confirmed that any turf that we install will not, and I repeat that again, not have PFAS included in it. And so I think the concerns are well placed, but they are not applicable to River Park. The second item I want to mention is relating to the topic of SB 1404 and Oak Woodlands. I also support that. I think it's great. I would note that currently on the site of Weddington, there is not a single oak tree, not a single one, and that the River Park proposes to plant over 100 oak trees across 3 different species, along with the complementary species and understory that you would find in oak woodland habitat. So I like the prior 2 agenda items, and I'm glad that River Park will fulfill them both. Thank you.
Terry Barnum.
Hi, everyone. And again, thank you for having me here today. I wanted to continue with the letter that Ari was writing. My name is Terry Barnum. I'm the head of athletics at Harvard Westlake School. So continue with the letter that Ari was reading. Harvard Westlake is partnering with multiple environmental nonprofits to develop programs and educational materials that will teach visitors to the River Park about environmental stewardship, especially as it pertains to the responsible use of water resources, the history of the river, and healthy watersheds. The draft environmental impact report finds that the project will have no significant impacts whatsoever on air quality, biological resources, energy, geology and soils, greenhouse gas emissions, hydrology and water quality, water supply, wastewater, and solid waste. Harvard Westlake has made a public commitment to extensive community access to the River Park. This includes 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. access to nearly 6 acres of lawns, wooded areas, plazas, vista points, and from the front of LA River, as well as a 1/3 of a mile walking, jogging trail that surrounds the entire property. In addition, the core athletic amenities of the site, including the gym, fields, track, and pool, will be available for use by individuals and community groups when not in use by the school. Of course, the new tennis facilities, the refurbished historic clubhouse, and the putting green will remain open to the public, and Cafe Southwest will continue to serve guests. We recognize that the DEIR is extensive and that your committee may have questions about it or other aspects of the project that are not covered in the DEIR. We stand ready to answer these questions if and when you would like to share them with us. Thank you.
Nancy, I don't know how to say your last name. Khalil.
Hi, good evening, Studio City Sustainability Board members. My name is Nancy, and I'm speaking in strong support of Harvard Westlake's River Park campus project. As strong environmentalists, my family is concerned that the existing use, the golf course, consumes 12 million gallons of water per year and requires hundreds of pounds of petroleum-based fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides. The water reclamation element, combined with reduced water and fertilizer use, shows much needed environmental stewardship on the part of Harvard Westlake for Studio City and our planet. We've had a long-term commitment to being green at our house. We are a politically active family in the Valley. We work with our neighbors to make our community better. The Harvard Westlake River Park project aligns with our family's long-term advocacy for projects that do right by the community and help combat the global climate crisis. We believe that the sooner this project gets underway, the better. We appreciate your careful consideration and your support. Thank you.
A number ending in 401. You have to, I think you have to press star. There you go.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Phil. I've been tracking this project now for quite some time and participated in a number of these meetings, and I really appreciate everybody's time and consideration about it. I am a born and bred San Fernando Valley resident, growing up in Studio City and continue to live in the area. I'm also a golfer, and Weddington is not what it used to be. And I'm also somebody who is very, very much in tune to the efforts of the Los Angeles River Revitalization Plan. The redevelopment of the site into recreation uses, the addition of the river park and access to the park support all of the efforts that are being considered citywide for the revitalization of the river. Not to mention the fact that hundreds and hundreds of native species trees will be planted at the site, providing shade and also eliminating the light pollution from the driving range that's open until 10 o'clock at night. So I strongly support the project. The fact that there's environmental stewardship that's being presented here, this is the highest and best next use for the property. Thank you for your time.
Sorry. Sam?
Thank you. I'm Sam Puatastanon, and I'm here to speak in support of the River Park project. The project itself represents a unique opportunity for both the school and the Studio City neighborhood, because the plan includes a state-of-the-art system that will clean and reuse stormwater runoff, not only from the project site, but also from the adjacent residential neighborhood to the north. Currently, as I think many of you know, neighborhood and stormwater runoff flows untreated directly into the LA River, and that runoff from the golf course particularly brings with it the fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides used to maintain the golf course grass, which can endanger the environment. Urban runoff, which contains a host of harmful pollutants, has been identified as a significant impact on water quality. Untreated urban runoff adversely affects the Los Angeles River, which flows directly into the Pacific Ocean, plant and animal life, as well as public health. When completed, the river park will collect water from rooftops, the athletic fields, and even the tennis courts. This collected water will be treated and then stored in an underground cistern and reused for irrigation on site. The storage tanks on the River Park campus will hold up to 1 million gallons of water that would otherwise flow into the storm drain system and be completely lost. In addition, the proposed design will result in a huge water savings over the golf course's current usage. The golf course uses over 12 million gallons of water per year. The River Park's use of water for landscaping purposes is estimated at approximately 3.3 million gallons. As a result, this innovative project will keep over 9 million gallons of fresh water in the city's reservoirs. Given the worsening drought conditions in the area, this would represent a substantial community benefit that cannot be overlooked. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak in support of the project.
Thank you. 848, phone number ending in 848.
Hi, this is Leslie Sloan, and I'm just calling because I do not support maintaining a golf course at Weddington. Unlike the city's many public and private golf courses, the Weddington course does not recycle water. Instead, it uses millions of gallons of fresh water. I just don't understand how we can justify using that much water during our current drought, the worst drought we've ever had, and with climate change. So instead of protecting a golf course, I urge that we support the river park. Thank you.
Phone number ending in 944.
Hi, my name is Jody, and I'm a neighbor of the Weddington Golf and Tennis. And since this is the Sustainability Committee, it's clear, no matter how you define sustainable, that the River Park is more sustainable than the current situation at Weddington Golf and Tennis. River Park will use millions of gallons less water than the golf course does, and Harvard Westlake plans to install the largest stormwater capture and reuse system of its kind in the city. In the middle of the most severe drought in our state's modern history, it's inconceivable that anyone would argue that a golf course, with all of its water use and its pesticides and herbicides, is somehow more sustainable than a thoughtfully designed river park that uses captured stormwater, features native plants, and invests in solar power. I fully support the Harvard Westlake River Park as a more sustainable vision for the future of this site. Thank you.
Are Rogans?
Yes, hello. My name is John Manzanares. For some reason, my spouse's name is showing up here, and because I'm technically challenged, I can't seem to fix that. But thank you for the committee for looking into this. I do appreciate the environmental concerns. I too, my family supports strongly the Harvard Westlake River Park project. I agree with everything the supporters have said so far, but I must say I'm perplexed. There is a speaker that you had from out of town that was not agendized, that I believe is in violation of the Brown Act. But in addition to that, if you are concerned about the environment and you're concerned about looking at this from a neutral perspective and what is best for Studio City from an environmental perspective, why don't we have an expert talking about the environmental hazards of golf courses, which some people want to maintain at this site? There is no credible environmentalist who will support a golf course. They will all tell you that it is horrible for the environment. The herbicides, the pesticides, the constant water and mowing. Why don't we have someone, if this committee is concerned about this, why don't we have somebody speaking about that? I pose that question to the committee. This doesn't look neutral to me. It looks stacked, and I'm not happy about that. And I don't think other Studio City residents are happy about that. Thank you.
Thank you. John will take that into consideration. That's a good suggestion. Thank you. Louis?
Thank you. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity. From what I've seen and heard, Harvard Westlake doesn't seem to be following history or science. History, the community seems to push back every time this green open space has been threatened with mindless, not mindful plans. And science, at a time when the UN is saying how we're at a dangerous crossroads with global warming and climate change, the school chooses to cut down hundreds of trees, rip out acres of healthful grass, and replace it all with young trees that'll take decades to enhance what we have as a canopy already, and acres of unhealthy plastic turf to boot. Now, I understand the athletic program has outgrown the academics at Harvard Westlake. It's fairly obvious, and they want to expand their facilities in order to stay competitive and solvent for the future. But it's also concerning, almost terrifying, that they can spend $150 million or more and transform this property, but at what cost to the community? That same community that was originally promised that tranquility, quote, tranquility of the neighborhood would be maintained. Now, this so-called River Park is divisive and destructive. And it's pretty brazen that the school parades this sports complex as a community park, because for nearly 70 years, Los Angeles and more has enjoyed a very special environment that's also a historical monument. And despite local government recently gutting not once but twice a historical designation of the Weddington property to keep it into its entirety, that strange twisting episode reduced it to a sliver of the site to be preserved. And I have to think that all said and done, there are cheaper options. There are better locations for expansion of their sports program. But this so-called River Park, to me and to many others that I've talked to for years now, is simply the wrong plan in the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's the 2 minutes.
Thank you, Louis. Basil Hammett. I'm so bad at pronouncing names.
Hi, yeah, I'm Basile. Hi, I'm Basile Hamida. I'm here to support wholeheartedly the Harvard Westlake River Park project. Unlike Benny, I'm an immediate neighbor of the Weddington Golf and Tennis Club. My family and I live approximately 6 blocks away. I drive by, bike, and walk by almost on a daily basis. I'm calling in to urge the committee to embrace good, positive change. I respectfully disagree with the previous caller about Harvard Westlake's intentions. I recall, living here prior to Harvard Westlake purchasing Weddington, and there was great fear that the property would be sold to build high-rise condominiums, medical buildings, or general office buildings. Harvard Westlake purchased the property, has a right to put it to use in a responsible way, which they've outlined extensively for a very long period of time. The Weddington Golf Course is just no longer a viable business. That's why the previous owner sold it to Harvard Westlake. I recall being, at one talk at the local church a couple of blocks away, where the grandchildren of Mr. Weddington wholeheartedly supported Harvard Westlake's purchase and plans. The River Park will be a tremendous upgrade, creating beautiful, new, environmentally sustainable park, open every day for public use, including for me and my family for decades, generations to come. There will be world-class recreational facilities. I absolutely believe Harvard Westlake when they say it will be open to the public. I will be there with my family to use it when Harvard Westlake is not using it for their students. And I believe the community will benefit tremendously from the property. I think that's wonderful. And I know many of us in the Valley will enjoy coming to the River Park in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Basil. Jamie York.
Yeah, hi. I am a member of the Reseda Neighborhood Council, and I represent a much lower income neighborhood than Studio City. But I know that there are residents in my neighborhood who use Weddington Golf regularly because it's an accessible place for recreation. And so when I think about this project, I think about the loss for my community in terms of access to recreation. And that frankly, this project is just another example of the richest of the rich taking from those of us in lower income communities and middle income class communities and just taking more from us. And it's reprehensible. And then they want to talk about water recapture, but you know what? We just passed Measure W. Measure W is bringing in water recapture in the LA basin, which should have been done a long time ago. But if our taxes weren't cut by people like us in the 1% that simply just want to have low taxes, but then have their own private facilities, then maybe we would have had these things earlier. I'm so sick and tired of the prioritization of the few over the many. And that's what this is to me. So my neighborhood council has supported being against this project. We're supporting the rights to have this kind of access. But it's just, we've seen over and over and over again what the privatization of public goods does. And it's nothing good for communities of regular people like the ones that I live in. Thank you.
Peter?
Hi there. Pardon me, I have a frog or two in my throat. The DEIR is what, 6,503 some odd pages. Just doing eeny, meeny, miny, mo, I happened upon this little sentence on page 2. It says, anticipated significant environmental effects. Based on the analysis included in the draft EIR, the project would result in significant and unavoidable impacts. Page 2. So I don't know how Harvard Westlake can say they're making it bigger, better, brighter, and they're going to save the environment here. I know from living right behind Sportsman's Lodge and the construction over there, they cannot mitigate what they say they can. I have plenty of videos showing the wind blowing the dirt everywhere. Plus, during the construction, I had to leave because I was sounding like this. I was getting ill from what was being introduced into the air. Plus the noise. That's 2.5, 3 years of noise over there, and I just don't see the benefit. I dealt with Harvard Westlake from friends who were lived near the project and the bridge over Coldwater, and I have nothing nice to say about them. It just wasn't what I would call an open dialogue. This just has all the earmarks of a disaster. Thank you.
Thank you. Kira?
Hi, I don't know if the project leaders are going to be allowed to speak again, but I'm confused on 3 things. One, are you claiming that cutting down gorgeous old trees and then planting new trees is going to be the same amount of tree canopy? Because I don't think so. And then number 2, are you claiming that you're never going to have night lights, like there's never going to be any games at night? And then number 3, I appreciate you saying that you're not going to use artificial turf, but I'm confused about what kind of turf you are using and how that will require less water from what is being used now, because you can capture all the storm water you want, but as mentioned, we are in a severe drought. I don't think that's going to change, so I don't think stormwater capture is the solution to watering. And again, I don't know if they'll be allowed to answer any of those questions, but thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thanks, Kira. Alan? Alan and Beth Diamond?
Okay, I was on mute. I didn't realize that. Okay, Alan Diamond, President of the SCRA. I know most of these people here on the screen today, and I'm welcome to be able to talk to other people. You do realize that under that golf and tennis, we have the biggest aquifer that can sustain a lot of people if you allow it, the rain to come down, go through it, and recharge the aquifer. The DWP is gradually cleaning up that aquifer, going from the east to the west. Wells are coming back online. Now, if you want to put a whole bunch of artificial turf on, and what I'm learning tonight, I am horrified that they're using this to cool the grass down, pump it back on the street, and dump it into the river. That to me is not good engineering, and it's not a good thing for anybody. Also, I would say that we've heard a lot of stuff, a lot of hearsay, a lot of people repeating the same thing over and over, but you know, we've got a draft environmental impact out there. We are slowly going through it. Hopefully it will be completed soon, that we can really address all of it, not parts of it, because there are pieces missing. And let's talk to the experts to see what they have to say about what Harvard Westlake is proposing. These experts have no, skin in the game. They are paid to give us their professional opinion. And I think we really should concentrate on what the DEIR says, go through it in a logical, standardized way, and come to some considered conclusions. And I do like the lady who said that where she comes from, she does not see how her neighborhood benefits. Well, the city already has recognized in some of its codes that there's such a thing as called social equity. And when you come up with the project, they have to look at who benefits, why do they benefit, and who is disenfranchised. Now, Harvard Westlake seems to think they can buy that property down there, a private school, do what they want, and they are not telling us what they want to do with it. For years,
That's our 2 minutes.
Okay, wrap up. We have asked them time and time again to sit down with us and tell us what they're going to do with it. Since they lost up on the campus on Coldwater, they still will not tell us what their scheduled programs are. How many students? What are you going to do down there?
Thank you. Terry Austin.
Hang on a second. There. Hello. Hi. I just wanted to show you. You can put these on. You're going to cut foot tree. Antling makes it sound like there's a very lush happening there. But if you look at the renderings that are now available, the new renderings, the highly colored ones that are in the clubhouse currently, you will see that the park is mostly areas of corner landscaping with a lot of hardscape around it. So that I don't think that that is the same thing as the lush trees that we have now. The tree canopy issue is completely wrong because the trees that will be planted do not reach the heights of the cedars and the pines that we have now that support the wildlife. So for sustainability, in the letter that was read out, there were 8 categories mentioned. There's over 20 in the DEIR, and several of them say there are significant impacts. And the one that I like the best is the one that says the superior environmental project is alternative 1, no project at all. That is the superior environmental decision in the DEIR that is paid for by Harvard Westlake. That's how the system goes. There's nothing wrong with that. The developer must pay for the DEIR. They hire the firm off of a list that they're given by the city. But I can't help but think that none of these firms would do much business if they didn't write as rosy a picture for the person who hired as possible. So all I would say is that as far as sustainability and biodiversity goes, just today I picked up a hawk feather on the grounds of Weddington, and those hawks will not live there when there are no 100-foot trees to support them any longer. So I don't know how the person who randomly called in who said they were a supporter knew exactly how many gallons of water that is used on the property, because I couldn't find that in any public records. So I think that one of the things that really rubs the community the wrong way is that when people call in and they have these carefully staged things to say with facts that the public doesn't have, it's kind of showing your slip, Ari, that these people are coached. And
That's my 2
second of
minutes.
all, oh, that's my 2 minutes? Yeah. And that is the end of what I have to say. Thank you. Plantling.
Right, Brandon?
Yeah, I've been listening to all the conversations about this, and the last few callers were pretty much on the nose about it. But one word I have not heard yet is guarantee. Everyone says plans, public commitments. They strive, they aim to do this. But how about some cold, hard numbers you can straight out guarantee? How many plants are you going to plant? How many trees are you going to plant? A guaranteed number. Not a proposal, not a plan, but a straight up guarantee. And I understand this is very early in the process and things change. Look at Sportsman's Lodge. But guaranteeing X amount of trees and holding to that number would, in my mind, make a difference. It would be a step in the right direction. Also, something else that's not exactly attached to the DEIR is this, maybe it was listed somewhere and I missed it. Is this actually going to be considered campus? Is this going to be a school campus, an annexation to the campus? Is it going to still be public land? Because you were saying when not in use by the school. If I'm playing tennis over there and it's after school and I have a couple of Harvard Westlake kids show up and say, it's our tennis court, get the hell off, what's going to happen? Because they're students of Harvard Westlake, do they get privilege over me? You say a lot that it is going to be public land as best you can, but I'm wondering if this is going to be a problem in the future. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brandon. Patty Kirby?
Hello, everybody. I have 2 things I want to say. One is when Harvard Westlake purchased this property, they knew they had to get a conditional use permit, which is, the description is to benefit the community. So I don't see this plan as benefiting the community at all. Now, I also want to ask this committee who have good sustainability interests to form an ad hoc committee. There are 8 to 21 issues on this 6,500 page DEIR. It's intense. If you would develop an ad hoc committee and come back to a special meeting and have a report, that's what I would ask for, and go from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. And that is the end of our public comment. Yep. I do have a few little answers, I think, but maybe it'll come out in our discussion. I do know, I'm pretty sure that I read that when they're going to take down, I believe, 240 mature significant trees. And I'm sorry, 647, did you want to speak?
I do. I do want to speak. Good evening. I'm Susan, and I'm a 40-year resident of Studio City. I would like to set the record straight about trees at the Harvard Westlake River Park. There will be more trees on site when the park opens, not fewer, and they will be more appropriate species than what is on the property today. The property is currently used as a golf course, driving range, and tennis courts, and much of plant life on site is non-native. When the River Park project is completed, there will be 150 plus additional trees on site, and the Mexican fan palm trees on the property, which actually are a non-native invasive species, will be replaced on a 2-to-1 basis with mature plantings of more appropriate trees. The environmentally appropriate trees that Harvard Westlake plants will increase the biodiversity of the site. Harvard Westlake River Park represents a vast improvement over the current condition of the property. At the end of this day, the site will support greater biodiversity and welcome bird and small animal species from beyond the concrete confines of the river channel. I'm proud to support the River Park on the basis of its environmental benefits to our Studio City community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So what I was saying is, I know they're taking out 240 mature trees, some of those palms, some of those very large trees. And they say that they're putting in 150 more than that, which would mean they'd be putting in 390 trees if they're, and I think the last speaker was wrong, that the palms only have to be replaced 1-to-1. They're not replaced 2-to-1.
Hey, Adele?
Yeah.
With some of the Harvard Westlake folk on the phone, there's some of these topics are voluminous. Some of them are neatly quantified. Would it make sense to throw some of the tree count questions to the Harvard Westlake representatives?
No, because we're not going to do a Q&A because it'll get too lengthy. And we have, Diane and Nicole can speak to the trees issues, and Melanie can speak to a lot of the other issues too. And we can go from there, I think. And if we need to, we can ask, I guess we can ask Ari or David Wheel some questions if you want. But I was in the middle of saying something about the trees. But let me let Diane and Nicole speak about that.
Okay, so first of all, I want to preface this by saying I worked on Councilmember Corette's working group that brought us the city's biodiversity report. I am an accredited ecological landscape professional, and I have all kinds of degrees, environmental science degrees, so I understand what biodiversity means. And I never met a landscape where I didn't want to plant oak trees. But I'd like to address a few of the comments that were made in public comment. First, I'm not sure the site after the build out that is proposed would even support the 300 oak trees that I think one of the commenters, it might have been Ari, had said, because the permeable acreage will be significantly reduced based on the proposed site design that I reviewed in the EIR. Second, water is not wasted when it goes back into green vegetation. And as Alan Diamond correctly pointed out, back into the aquifer. Even if that vegetation is turf grass. And I don't mean plastic grass, I mean the real turf grass. Also, the most drought tolerant trees are established mature trees. As for the concerns that were raised about all the herbicides, it's worth noting that county sprays 7 different herbicides in and around the river. So if anybody has a concern about that, I am happy to have a conversation about that in another for another meeting, but it's kind of disingenuous for Harvard Westlake or anybody else to make that point, given that we have all those herbicides that are being sprayed. But Adele, I can answer any specific questions about trees. What I'm concerned about is there's not a lot of space after the build out to plant large trees. I certainly the best trees for the environment and biodiversity are native, but we have Eric Wood's research, who's PhD from Cal State, that found there are some trees on the site that are actually good for birds too, especially the deodars, the liquid ambars, the really tall trees. That's where you need those tall trees for hawks and other raptor birds. Palms are very important for the bats, for orioles, and for other nesting birds. So I just wanted to make those points, but I'd like to also say something as an environmental scientist. You know, golf courses in general get a really bad rap, and we heard it today. But I also want to recognize that Weddington and golf courses like them make golf an accessible activity to a diverse group of users. They function as bird refuges, stopover sites for migratory birds, connectivity for a variety of wildlife species. It cools the surrounding neighborhoods, provides meaningful treed green buffers. Like most golf courses, it could be better, but it could also be a lot worse. And my fear is that what we're looking at with the proposed project may fall into the category of a lot worse. The truth is that when you're cutting down over 200 significant trees and replacing acres of open green space with concrete, metal, maybe plastic, grass, and gravel, that impact is significant. Green cover and open green space are necessary to sustain us. I mean, you know, we all know this is right? I mean, we don't wake up thinking about how we're going to get oxygen to breathe for the day because of plants. And there's a whole bunch of other ecosystem services that I know I don't have to talk about here. But unfortunately, the city of Los Angeles has already lost as much as 79% of green open space and cover in and around our residential neighborhoods from 2000 to 2009, according to a USC spatial science study, because we've allowed many small and large developments to move forward as proposed by developers. And despite the critical importance of green cover to our community, the city hasn't even updated its open space element since Nixon was president, nor has it made use of its bloated Quimby Park funds account. So this has resulted in this slow death by 1,000 cuts of our green spaces as development projects reduce green open space piece by piece, area by area, while the individual harm of each project seems small to the project's proponents. Cumulatively, such development projects are slowly eliminating significant portions of our remaining green open space and green cover. And that's happening particularly in Studio City. So this really is a serious sustainability issue that I think requires careful evaluation, for critically informed decisions. You know, I'm on this committee and I am an expert on trees and urban equality. But this 6,000 page EIR with, you know, lots of important elements to consider is a big lift. And this committee, I don't think has experts for those other elements. As far as I know, there's no such experts with any other committee, not the land use committee, not the board. So if we're going to take this seriously, and I think we should, I think we need to review comments made by the experts that are commenting on the DEIR, and maybe the ad hoc committee that was proposed by one of the commenters is a good idea. Or maybe putting this on as a reoccurring agenda item and inviting expert presentations is a good idea. But I feel uncomfortable right now starting to have a rigorous conversation about the tree report that I reviewed, that I have all kinds of problems with, but I feel like that's one element of a lot of different elements, and we need to do this more, this other approach that I'm thinking about, which is to engage with the experts.
Thank you, Diana. Melanie?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that a couple people have raised their hands that I don't think are on the committee. So Adele, can you clarify for everybody that public comment is, we've done that already?
Yes, yes, public comment is over. I'm not going to call on any people that have already spoken. And also, public comment is over. And right now it's the committee is weighing in on what they've heard and what their thoughts are and where we're going to go from here. So
thanks. Okay.
I don't know. There's an iPhone. Who's that?
That's Alex, I think.
That's Alexander Black. Just
okay.
wishing.
Okay, sorry. I was going to like
I can
boot
make
you
it
off.
pretty quick. If any of the Harvard Westlake folks are still with us, I'm asking at some point, maybe not at this meeting, but at another meeting, could we please hear from them as to the speaker we had tonight in terms of what that person brought and all of the information that person brought specifically? That seemed to have died rather quickly, and that was a lot of information. I'm going to guess it was important, but I'd like to let them talk quite a bit more about it. All I heard was their guarantee. I'm not going to say guarantee. They said that the turf they were going to use had no PFAS or any of the materials that the speaker brought up. I need clarification on that so I can try to be neutral and try to get more information from Harvard Westlake. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd agree. I think it'd be very helpful if they would just go ahead and forward by email the brand that they're going to use, so that the folks, our folks, can take a look at that.
Harvard Westlake
and take. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to be talking at the same time.
That's it.
And just take a look at whether any other lab analysis have been done on that particular brand, so we're not taking somebody's word for something. I think that would be helpful to back Alex up on that. I just want to say I think if this is something we can do and form an ad hoc committee, I think it would be helpful. This is going to take more time, and bring in some other folks to answer questions we have. But I think, apart from what appeared to be very tightly and professionally scripted comments from folks, I think there was some good issues raised tonight, particularly around the issues of how much hardscape really there is on site, on social equity aspects here. When you say you have to benefit the community, how are we all defining community? And I'll say my expertise really is in stormwater and in watershed management and in climate resilience. So I can appreciate how a lot of what's been proposed here looks on the surface like, you know, a real Cadillac version of what needs to happen for, you know, sustainability and water and stormwater and biodiversity. But I think if you're really looking at what we have compared to what is proposed, I don't see a metric that makes this project compelling for Studio City. Now, I don't necessarily think also that we should be comparing the golf course and tennis as it is today necessarily with the Harvard Westlake proposal on any of those metrics, because a lot could be improved with the site under a different management structure with higher goals, with a more inclusive set of objectives and a less engineered approach. So I think that's a canard to say that compared to the existing site, this is a Cadillac, and I don't get why you guys don't love it, because doesn't it check every single buzzword that we have all heard and don't understand very well? That's my short version of what I heard from most of the comments out there today, because I don't think any of them are experts. I know some of them are experts in finance, because I Google fast. But I don't think any of them are experts in any of the issues that they were speaking to directly. So I get why they're excited about this when the proponent talks about it in these terms, because looked at it from a certain angle, yeah, cool. You're checking some boxes that I hear and understand are important. But that's not the point. The point is this has to be a benefit to the community. How do we define community? We don't need to compare it to what is on the site today. But in a lot of these metrics, what is there today is better in many ways than what they're proposing. The addition of hardscape is a net negative in and of itself. The way they're proposing to manage stormwater is a way over the top, not site. It's not designed to manage what's happening in the community. It's designed to make them look like they're doing a good thing. So that's a massive expense for very little real direct benefit to the community on the stormwater site. And there is lights and noise, and there is a very interesting definition of access. And I do believe my understanding is it's very, very limited to certain people in the community for certain hours of the day on certain parts of the site. So that's something I can't get out of my head. But I will say a lot of my concern is also related to the geology here. This is a site of, you know, historically groundwater levels are pretty high here. Now they're not high today, but we are on a program regionally of recharging our groundwater basin through stormwater capture at small, medium, and large scales. And the region has a plan to, you know, take the water from Tillman, the excess water from Tillman, and get it into the spreading grounds and recharge the aquifer as well. We've had years where we have big rain, where a site where the groundwater can raise 5 feet in areas like this that are close up against the Santa Monica Mountains. So from what I've seen of the proposals to excavate for the underground parking garages, they're gonna have to de-water. They're gonna have to do a lot of soil compaction, and they're gonna have to de-water. So if you're starting to look at a balanced approach to the little sub-watershed area here, and how they're like, we're gonna engineer fabulous stormwater stuff to capture and store, and then we're gonna be pumping water out of the site every day, perpetually, because we've gone into the groundwater basin. And you're doing that on a site that's the historic floodplain of the Los Angeles River, when we know that in the next decade, we're going to see large flood events that are gonna overtop the river in Studio City. So when you're proposing to build structures and development, and particularly proposing to go underground to that extent, and in order to shore it up in the immediately adjacent floodplain area in a flood prone area where groundwater is going to be rising. This is just, wow. You do no benefit to the site by forcing this on it. And the last thing I'll say, because I'm rambling, I'm sorry. The last thing I'll say is whether the trees on the site right now are native or not, and a lot of them I don't like, I'd be happy to get rid of every palm, and they're not trees. I'd be happy to get rid of every palm in Studio City, personally. But they do provide habitat for certain species right now. It's going to be, we're going to make some difficult changes in the coming years. You know, our priority is to protect existing trees. We want to protect and expand biodiversity, which means we do want to go more native, but we have to make interesting decisions when we remove any mature tree, because they're storing and sequestering carbon. The older they are, the better they are at it. When you remove that, you have to manage that extraordinarily well, not to release that carbon into the atmosphere. And you're getting rid of a mechanism to sequester and manage that and clean the air quality in our community. When you plant a young tree, even if it's a 2-to-1 ratio, which is not enough, you're losing more than a decade during a time when we need to be ramping up our ability to capture and sequester carbon. So losing trees, even if you're going on a 2-to-1 minimal ratio, you're losing other benefits in the process. You're losing the ability to provide habitat, you're losing the carbon sequestration, you're losing shade. So these things are not just like knock it out and plant something else, it's all good. There is a time sequence and an overlap, and you have to be really careful with this stuff. So I think I hit my points. There are other ways to have golf courses, but that's it. I'll stop, and I'm happy to answer anybody else's questions about the particulars of the groundwater, the flood risk, the stormwater management ideas, or anything else. I do have some expertise in this, and I won't bore you with all of my decades. So that's it.
Thanks, Melanie. Before I go to Diana, I just want to know if anybody else on the committee would like to just make a comment or say anything. Chris?
Yeah, I can say one thing. I live about a block and a half from Campbell Hall, which I don't know, about 5 years ago or so, they added a whole football field down by the Tahunga Wash, which every time they have a night game, I get to hear the play-by-play. I'm about a block and a half away, and on those nights, it looks like the sun is rising in that direction from my backyard. So I have, in addition to all of the other things, I'm still pretty concerned about the light situation. I know they said in the DEIR that they're going to use special focused lightings and some kind of, special engineered stuff. But when you're talking the magnitude of the lights that those are, even if you have special baffles, light baffles or whatever, I think you're still adding a tremendous amount of light spillage to the neighborhood. And there have been quite a few things that I've read lately about lights at night and it disrupting migratory birds and seabirds that we have in the LA River. So I'd like to hear more about that. Yes, they said that they're using special baffles or whatever, but I still don't have an idea of the overall picture. But what I do know is what I see from the much, much, much smaller project from Campbell Hall, which in my backyard is significant. So I'd like to hear more about the light situation.
And Tony, you had something to say?
I'm new on the committee and still sort of finding my way around, but I've been living in Studio City since 1984, my wife and I, and raised a family here. And so I do think it's important that, and it is important, of course, to hear from the Harvard-Westlake community members. I would imagine that most of the people who spoke tonight are either parents or connected somehow to the school. even though they may have identified themselves as residents. The school serves people from all over Los Angeles. It is one of the most elite and expensive private schools in the United States. And so but they've also been part of Studio City for a very long period of time. So it's important that we work together. But I just don't see so far from what I've heard in the arguments that were presented tonight about the project, that that's really working to the benefit of the Studio City community. You know, I'm a Tree People community forester and a certified naturalist. And I can tell you that, you know, the idea of cutting down large trees that are not native and replacing them with native trees is not okay. The idea of cutting down 200 trees or more is unbelievable to me, that would even be possible this day and age in Los Angeles with what we're trying to do. And, you know, I have a list here of trees, you know, this goes on and on for the city of Los Angeles that is approved for street trees. And only a handful of them are natives because most of them are not appropriate. They don't grow big enough here, you know, for street trees. And what we're trying to do in terms of planting the urban forests. So a lot of the trees that are at at the community Weddington Golf and Tennis are trees that are large and support the urban forest and urban forestry. And so I think we have to be careful just to say, just because it's native, that it's better than a non-native tree. I mean, that train left the station a long time ago in Los Angeles. You know, we don't, you know, we have mostly non-native flora in the area, and it's and we need to keep that, since we've urbanized it. It's a very important aspect to what we're trying to do. And I think the water concerns are a big issue here, as well as where that water is going to go. You know, the percolation programs, the bioswells, and they're keeping a lot of it on the site there. It's all very impressive. But we have to remember that it's a sports complex. And, you know, having run schools worked in public education for 42 years and been an administrator for most of that, I mean, sports are a big deal. And in the community where I worked, we had to be really careful with how we worked with our community and not to upset the neighbors, you know, with the sports. It draws hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people, you know, every week to the games. There's no ending to it, to the whole thing. It'll bring an enormous amount of traffic. There's no way to mitigate that, and a lot of activity to an area where that's not getting that right now. And in my opinion, in the opinion of many people in Studio City, there's way too much traffic, and it's way too urbanized already. It's ruining to the way it used to be. And you can't even go to the store without spending a half an hour. And we keep building more. And we keep saying we don't want it, but it keeps happening. And so this is another example of that. So again, I don't want to go on. And I think there's a lot of various issues that need to be addressed here. But I was a big proponent. I don't understand how Harvard Westlake was able to buy the property in the first place. That it should have been made an urban park by the city. And that's the city's fault to begin with, that this has been allowed to be, it should have been purchased by the city or the state, et cetera. In the area where I came from in Oak Park, where I was superintendent, the school district had claim to the area of the Amundsen and Jordan ranches out there. And there was a big fight over the development of that, of putting thousands and thousands of homes and a PGA golf course, et cetera. And what happened in the end is that the state purchased the land and declared it open space and made it part of the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. The hugest, I mean, enormous tracts of land, you know, all the area between West Hills and Oak Park. And that was the best thing that could have ever happened to that whole area. And I guess I don't understand in Los Angeles why we couldn't have declared eminent domain and taken this land and made it for the public, to some of the points that were made about, you know, who gets to use this property, et cetera. You know, we don't have enough park space for people in our city, not just Studio City, but the surrounding areas that are much more urbanized and lower income that could really use that area. And I don't believe for 1 minute that that's going to open it up, but with what the proposal is here, to more people of lower income to use that property and to recreate there, et cetera. You know, it's going to be an exclusive area for mostly the students. And when they say it's going to be mostly for the students, it'll be used most of the time for the school. But the athletic facilities are used tremendously in all schools today, and they can't get enough time on them. So enough for this right now, my points right now, but there's a lot more to be said about it, obviously, as we go forward.
Chip?
Yeah. I've been I've been representing the community on this piece of property since 2004. in this conversation today, there are half a dozen to a dozen misconceptions. This format doesn't work to fill in Tony, for example, on why eminent domain is impossible with a golf course. And it would take me 20 minutes to take you through the machinations we've had with the city who did not want the property. The property was destined to be sold by the Becker family, who now own a descendants from the Weddingtons who are going to develop it. But we can talk about all of that. I suggest that the committee take a look at what our mandate is as the Studio City Neighborhood Council Sustainability Committee. What's in our wheelhouse, what's in our swim lane, come up with those questions and ask representatives from Harvard Westlake to come in a public or private, I don't know what the rules are, and sit there and actually have an exchange about the concerns, the topic, and go back and forth. And then after a discussion, weigh the issue and come up with some sort of a direction. So I think we need to have a committee meeting to come up with, I mean, I have notes, what's the brand of turf? There was a mention of using less chemicals. Why not use no chemicals? You know, what are we talking about with the zero carbon footprint? Do we talk about the other campuses in addition to this? There are legitimate sustainability committee questions. Some of the stuff we're talking about here is not within sustainability, even if it's somebody's hobby. We need to come back and talk about very specifically, what are we mandated to do? Let's do that. Let's have a safe and sane conversation, get the information. And if it can't happen in the next week, because we need to have feedback from experts, we should at least get organized first so we know which questions for which we're looking for an authoritative answer. So I think we need to have a meeting amongst ourselves and then a meeting with representatives from Harvard Westlake. And then there will still be open questions. And then from there, we go to experts. But I think we need to have a plan. Otherwise, we're going to hear about everyone's resume.
Yeah. Yeah. Diana?
I appreciate the comments made by committee members here, and I would echo many of them. But I do believe that we need to actually review the material from the experts first. I think that's the smarter approach, and work back from there. To Chris, the lighting issue, it's a big issue. It's a bigger, I'm the girl that looks at EIRs all the time, and I look at the biological stuff. So I'm not a lighting expert, but I just happen to be on a board with the two nationally recognized lighting experts who've written a book about this stuff. And so that's just an example of, boy, I would really, if we can talk them into it, really like the committee to hear from them and people like them who are expert. You know, I mean, I think just listening to Melanie talk about the water is an illustration of really getting the full scope of what we're looking at here. And then we can go in and ask really informed questions and make really informed decision about what we want to advocate or not advocate for, support and not support. Because I don't feel comfortable voting on anything until we've heard from experts. And we have a unique situation here. We don't always have this because we very often don't have EIRs, and experts are going to be commenting on this. So it's already kind of built in. We should take advantage of that, in my opinion.
So if I'm sort of going to sum up what we have heard here, there are a lot of sustainability issues, loss of trees, water, synthetic turf, greenhouse gases, loss of open space. Is that a sustainability issue? lights, concrete, traffic, etc. And I think that, you know, this committee is concerned with environmental impacts, and that a project like this is very emotional and quite controversial. And we want to make informed decisions, balanced decisions, listening to and seeing what's good about the project, listening and hearing and thinking about what doesn't work about the project, and really reflecting that back to the community at large, both the community of Harvard-Westlake, which are stakeholders in Studio City, and the community of interested stakeholders. I do think that what we need to do is, I think we need to put the horse before the cart, right? Do the experts, get the experts to weigh in on, you know, the list of issues, and then, you know, go back to Harvard-Westlake and say, here's what we think. How do you answer these questions or these concerns or these impacts? And, you know, I don't know, Ari, is that something you, or David, is that something you guys are willing to do?
I have a quick question before they answer that.
Okay.
I understand that land use is also looking at this.
Right.
So I don't know if we are coordinating, collaborating, taking two separate paths. I don't know if we're taking a different approach than land use is taking. I'd kind of like to understand that better. I'm sure Ari and his team are, you know, working overtime to address both of our committees and numerous other interest groups at the moment. So I'd like to know how we are tasked with coordinating or collaborating with land use on this.
Maybe Randy can speak to that. Maybe, are you there, Randy? Brandon, are you around? Do you know?
Hi, hello, sorry, I am around. Just was searching for my unmute button. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi everyone. Interesting meeting to be sure. Melanie, that's a really great question. As has been mentioned tonight, with a report that is 6,500 pages plus, and a lot of it very technical, different committees are looking at different elements. So for example, transportation, right? We probably would likely all agree that a project of this size has implications around just transportation. So the transportation committee is also going to be looking at those elements within the DEIR and discussing those points. And I believe, for example, transportation committee is trying to get someone from DOT to speak to it. Land use committee will be looking at land use issues. I have been in touch with Harvard-Westlake, letting them know that the committees are, given that they are the applicant, this is the project that they're proposing, have told them that, look, these three committees are going to be hearing. And it's actually very possible, Melanie, that, and to the committee and everyone else, that the different committees could come up with different opinions. For example, it could be possible that after Sustainability Committee hears from experts, looks at the DEIR, discusses any questions that they may have should they choose to discuss with Harvard-Westlake, they could come back and say, we, the Sustainability Committee, for example, feel that the best option, in our opinion, we would advise the neighborhood, our board, the SCNC, to support alternative one, right, which is no project whatsoever. And then land use could come and make a recommendation to be in favor of another alternative. And so once we have all of those, the recommendations from the different committees, the board will hold a meeting, most likely with just this issue on the agenda, to hear from the community, hear from stakeholders, and weigh what makes, what we think makes sense that hopefully is addressing the concerns of all parties. Does that make sense?
It does, but I guess the question that I should probably articulate better is, because we have sort of a history of being confused about the overlap between land use and sustainability. So I guess if there's a way that this committee can understand what specifically land use is taking on, and it may be that there is overlap between what this committee takes on and what land use takes on, but that's a thing that has been contentious in the past, and so I thought maybe we'd have a better path forward by having some clarity this time.
Sure, I think the reality is in a project of this size and this complex, which has been pointed out by a number of people who have spoken tonight, there is a lot of overlap, not just between land use and sustainability. There is transportation, and so that's 3. We could probably talk about some other committees that potentially would have an impact or an opinion. Frankly, all of Studio City most likely has an opinion on this, and if they don't, they should. So the committee chairs are talking to each other. They will talk to each other. And it is my earnest hope and intention that as the Sustainability Committee comes to conclusions and findings and discussions, that people that are on land use will listen, will come with an open mind to hear what's being said and discussed as that helps frame their conversation. In fact, there are board members that have been in attendance tonight listening for that very, I think, same reason, because there is a lot of intersectionality between committees. So I think it is a clear path. I think that every committee is going to look at it from their angle. And as Chip said, kind of what's the mandate of each committee? What's the angle? And then we're all going to compare notes. We don't exist in silos to the point that we don't communicate. We will absolutely communicate. Everything will be in front of the public, and we will go from there.
Really quick, Adele, I just want to mention something to address Randy, what Randy's saying. I just want to make sure that there's recognition here that in sustainability at its core is an all systems approach to all of this. So their sustainability overlaps everything. Okay, so there's
I don't disagree with you.
Okay, thank you.
So we're talking about, going a little deeper into the DEIR and sort of coming up with a list of experts, finding experts to answer some of our questions, and then coming to you, Ari, and bringing some questions to you. Is that something that you are open to?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the school has always been willing to sit and answer questions from stakeholders and certainly from representative bodies. So we would be happy to field questions from this committee, provide answers in writing, provide answers in a private forum, in a public forum, however you see fit. I do think it's important that the committee take a moment to study the DEIR further, because there were a number of comments that were made on this call that are based on misinformation that could be clarified by simply reading the DEIR. We would certainly be happy to refer the members of the committee to the pages in the DEIR that offer clarification on some of the questions and some of the comments that were made. And if it's not in the DEIR, we certainly can provide answers as well. So yes, we would look forward to further engagement.
I think one of the things, just from my cursory reading of the DEIR, that there are significant areas of concern that aren't fully fleshed out. And I think that's what we're looking at, and that's what we are going to talk about, is the areas that, for example, what we heard about the synthetic turf was not at all addressed in the DEIR. PFAS or microplastics, and the I do believe that what was described about the heat island effect was given short shrift. So, but I don't want to get into a discussion. I'm just saying that's an example of something, and that's something that's near and dear to my heart. And I've done a lot of research on, and I am not an expert, but, and I think what we'll probably do is start to, reach out to experts, have them come and, see what we can, what we can build here, and then we'll come back to you.
Okay.
And Del, can I say, Ari, thanks for, I'm sure your team has flagged all the comments that raised issues for you that you feel are perfectly well addressed in the DEIR. So if you want to send an email with page and paragraph, here's something that was said and here's what we say in the DEIR. If you want to send a memo over to the committee, I think that's a very good idea.
Sure,
So-
we've certainly taken some notes tonight. We can do that. We obviously would welcome the questions from the committee. We can do that. The other thing, Adele, you mentioned seeking out experts. There were a number of very qualified experts that were assembled in order to compile the DEIR. We would be welcome to bring those technical experts to a meeting as well, so you can.
I think we'd be happy to find our own experts rather than the ones that did that, but thank you.
Agreed. Did you get those? There was a series of questions. If you didn't get them, I wrote them down so we can email back and forth, Ari, of the questions.
We wrote a few down, but certainly I think the appropriate approach would be for the committee to put its thoughts together about the questions that it had.
No, I mean the questions that people had tonight. There were a few questions that I wrote down. So I'll email you those because I wrote them down. So
And I'd also love to see, I'd love for you to send us over what you just mentioned, that you have a number of things that you feel can be answered that were raised tonight that you feel are answered well in the DEIR. If you want to send us that memo, that would be great.
Sure. We would have loved to be able to respond to those questions in real time, but we will certainly do so in writing after the fact.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. You said you'll respond to any questions we put to you after the fact, but I didn't hear you say that.
We wrote down questions based on your conversation tonight. It would have been nice for us to be able to respond to those questions as they came up, but that wasn't the format that was permitted for tonight's meeting. Nonetheless, we will do our best to respond to those questions after this meeting, and of course, to respond to subsequent questions that the committee poses to us.
Great, and you'll include, as you said, there questions answered in the DEIR, and you can give us the page and paragraph for each of those.
Chapter and verse.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Ari and David, for coming and being so generous with your time to explain everything to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, Adele, can I suggest that it's very late?
Yes.
And I have to go. Can I suggest that we move the other agenda items on the city motions
7 and
to
8. Yep.
another meeting, another month?
You can table them. Yeah. You can make a motion to table them.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to, I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda in front of me.
Table 7 and 8. Yeah.
Just table 7 and 8.
All in favor? I mean, do I have a second? Sorry, do I have a second?
I'll second if we table 9 too and just wrap it up for the evening.
Okay, and table a friendly amendment, table 9, and wrap it up for the evening. Okay.
Yep.
So a second, do we need discussion? Call for a vote. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Yay, thank you.
Thanks, Adele.
Thank you very much, everyone, for a really wonderful meeting and a very informative. And I'm very, I do want to reiterate that this can be very emotional and very controversial. And I'm very happy that everyone was so well behaved. And lately I've been having people on tennis courts screaming at each other. So it's quite lovely to not have that happening here. and you know, very smart, interesting, thoughtful comments, and certainly more, you all have much more expertise than I, and I am very impressed. So thank you for being on the committee. I really appreciate it. And thank you for coming. And our next meeting.
Hey, I'd like to say I'm excited about Tony being on the committee. Yay, Tony. I'd love to talk to urban foresters and would love to talk to you about natives versus non-natives someday too.
Yeah, I'm very excited, and I will put you on the letterhead. I'm so sorry, I keep forgetting to do that. I will be in touch with everybody by email for like to how to form an ad hoc committee-ish thing to figure out what our next steps are.
Great.
Does anybody have an idea before we go about what our next steps are? No. Okay, I'll be in touch, and we will figure out what our next steps are. So
Thanks so much, Adele.
thank you guys. Thanks for a great meeting.
Night all.
Night.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you very much, Adele. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Alex.
Bye.
Thank you, Adele.
Night.